Welcome to a journey through one of history's most fascinating contradictions. Today, we're diving deep into the story of the Holy Roman Empire, a 1,000-year saga that will help you understand the complex evolution of medieval Europe. We'll start from its chaotic beginnings after the fall of the Western Roman Empire, witness the rise of Germanic tribes, and follow this remarkable institution all the way to its dramatic end at the hands of Napoleon Bonaparte. Chapter 1. Born from Roman Ashes. Our story begins in chaos. Picture this. It's 476 AD, and the mighty Western Roman Empire has just collapsed. What was once a unified superpower has now shattered into countless city-states and kingdoms ruled by so-called barbarian tribes. Talking about the Goths, the Franks, the Lombards, and the Visigoths who had settled in what we now call Spain and France. Europe had become a patchwork of competing powers, each trying to carve out their piece of the former empire. But here's the thing. Even in all this chaos, the Roman brand still held incredible power. The idea of being Emperor of Rome still carried divine legitimacy. It meant you were chosen by God himself, blessed through coronation by the Pope in Rome. The dream of Roman greatness refused to die. Chapter 2. The Hero Who Saved the West. Charlemagne. The turning point came in the 8th century, and it arrived with a new threat from the south. Muslim armies from the Umayyad dynasty had conquered the Iberian Peninsula and were preparing to cross the Pyrenees into continental Europe. Enter the Franks, led by a man we know as Charlemagne, though some sources call him Charles Martel. This warrior king became Europe's savior. He successfully rallied the forces of the West and stopped the Muslim advance in its tracks. This victory made him the most powerful ruler in Western Europe. Then came Christmas night in the year 800. Pope Leo III, who had been brutally attacked and exiled by his enemies in Rome, owed his restoration to Charlemagne's intervention. In an act that would change history, the grateful Pope crowned Charlemagne as Emperor of the Romans. This wasn't just a ceremony, it was a declaration. The Pope was essentially saying, the center of Roman power has returned to the West. And this, friends, was the true beginning of what we would later call the Holy Roman Empire. Chapter 3. The Empire Breaks Apart. Birth of France and Germany. After Charlemagne's death, his vast empire faced a problem that would plague many medieval kingdoms. Succession. The empire was divided among his sons through the famous Treaty of Verdun in 843. The empire split into three main parts: East Francia, which would become the foundation of Germany; West Francia, which would become the foundation of France; and Lotharingia, a long strip of land in the middle that both sides would fight over for generations to come. Here's the crucial part. It was East Francia, essentially Germany, that inherited the title of Emperor of the Romans. Chapter 4. The Coming of Holiness. The Red-Bearded Emperor. Even with the imperial title, central authority kept weakening. The emperor wasn't chosen by inheritance anymore, but elected by German princes called prince-electors. The empire was becoming more of a loose confederation than a unified state. Then, in 1155, came Frederick I, better known by his legendary nickname Barbarossa, meaning Redbeard. This Hohenstaufen emperor was a skilled warrior with grand ambitions. He did something that would define the empire forever. Frederick forced the Pope to add the word holy, sacrum in Latin, to the empire's official name. This wasn't just about prestige, it was about legitimacy. By calling it the Holy Roman Empire, Frederick was declaring that this empire had divine approval. From that moment on, the full official name became Sacrum Romanum Imperium, the Holy Roman Empire. Chapter 5. Decline and the End. Napoleon's final blow. But let's be honest, this empire wasn't living up to its grand name anymore. By the later medieval period, it had become more like a loose federation of German-speaking city-states rather than a unified empire. The emperor's power was limited, constantly challenged by rising nation-states like France and England, and threatened by the expanding Ottoman Empire. The real end came in the early 19th century with a Corsican general named Napoleon Bonaparte. As Napoleon conquered Europe, he systematically dismantled what remained of the old order. In 1806, he forced the last Holy Roman Emperor, Francis II, to abdicate his Roman imperial title. Just like that, after more than 1,000 years, the Holy Roman Empire officially ceased to exist. It marked the end of medieval Europe and the beginning of the age of nation-states, including the Germany we know today. So what have we learned from this epic tale? The Holy Roman Empire perfectly illustrates that famous quote, "It was neither holy nor Roman nor an empire." It wasn't truly holy because most of its religious authority came from political manipulation and power games with the Vatican. It wasn't really Roman because its rulers and culture were fundamentally Germanic, not the Romans of antiquity. And it wasn't quite an empire because in practice it was more like a very loose federation of independent states rather than a centralized imperial power. This story reads like a historical epic that spans centuries. It's filled with power struggles between emperors and popes, between central authority and local princes, between the memory of Rome and the reality of Germany. When we study history like this, we should always remember to think critically. Historical narratives are often told through the lens of later generations, and they can carry biases or limitations. This story draws from established historical knowledge, but like all history, it's open to interpretation and debate. The Holy Roman Empire teaches us something profound. Even the most impressive names and claims of divine authorities can sometimes be more about political image-making than reality. The truth, as always, is far more complex and fascinating than the legends we create. And that complexity, that's what makes history so captivating.